All right, and then we'll go with it. How's it going, man?
Yeah, pretty good. I want to thank you again for coming on here. I know that this is pretty small, but I think it's important that we have conversations like this, and I'm really glad that you accepted my request to have this interview.
Thank you, thank you. Certainly, I
Yeah,
agree.
so I'm well aware of who you are, but for people who might be like tuning in or watching this later, they might not know who you are. Could you like introduce yourself and like the office that you're running for?
Yeah, my name's David A. I'll keep the middle name a secret. David A. Turrubiartez Jr. I'm 28. I'm from Immokalee. Been here majority of my life. Definitely spent most of my childhood, all of my childhood, my whole life in Southwest Florida, whether it was Immokalee or parts of Lehigh, and
Mhm.
a brief stint in Fort Myers. But I'm running for Collier County Commissioner of District 5, which covers Immokalee, Ave Maria, the Everglades City, as well as the Golden Gate Estates. So pretty much from Immokalee, from Collier Boulevard to I-75 down to 29. So pretty much that whole area. It's
It's
actually,
a pretty big area.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it's the biggest it's the biggest east of the Mississippi River. So
Um,
that
but
district.
to be fair, I think most of it's taken up by like Everglades like territory and land, right?
Yeah, a lot of it is empty land, farmland. But that's where I'm pretty sure you'll have a question. We'll dive into that. But that's where they're trying to change that. They're trying to build a lot more
Hmm.
development this way. So we'll see
Yeah.
what the next 10 years go.
Yeah. Okay. So as both of us are like citizens of Immokalee and we've been here for basically the majority of our lives, how would you describe, the culture of Immokalee for somebody who's never been to Immokalee?
It is a very whenever you get to Immokalee, you honestly think you're in a different state. Because when you look at the neighboring towns, it's there's movie theaters, there's a lot of traffic, and then whenever
Hmm.
you're driving to Immokalee, it's more of a homey feel. You can literally wave your hand, and the person next to you will wave.
Yeah.
Um, it is a big agriculture community. However, I do like saying blue collar community because for the people that don't work in agriculture, they have at one point, but they're working blue collar jobs or other jobs that they found fit. But it's that same ethic, that hard work mentality that they carry with them. So we're just
Hmm.
a community of hard workers, very proud of our heritage, meaning whether it's Mexican, Guatemalan, Haitian, African American, or just we're a big melting pot and we all mix and bind very well together.
Yeah, that's actually a really perfect description. I've always said personally, Immokalee feels um, it just feels like so many cultures at once. There's so many like types of people here and so many conversations that are had here that it's really hard to just give it one kind of description because we have I believe about half of the citizens who half of the residents of Immokalee were born in other territories in other places like Mexico, Guatemala, and all that.
Yeah.
So we really do just have like a really big melting pot here of people, from different cultures. So Immokalee, to say the least, has had a fair amount of issues in the past and currently has a couple of issues plaguing us right now. But what would you say was like your tipping point that made you say like I'm gonna run for office? I want to make a change.
The the issue that really made it cemented the fact that I was going to run was COVID. Because going along with all the issues, whether you're looking at the infrastructure, to the roads, to the overpopulation of schools, to the lack of healthcare here, I mean, the list goes on and on. But whenever it got to a point to where our people were being, I want to say targeted, but whenever our people weren't, we knew what was going to happen in the agriculture community due to having to ride together and go to the fields and other issues that were aware of that. Like whenever we understood that and found out that there was a specific moment really that drove me
Hmm.
to it. That's whenever there was a big conference going on in the community, and majority of the elected officials were there. However, our county commissioner wasn't there, and it was
Hmm.
about COVID and the crisis, and that really just irked me. That should have been your number one priority because we're talking about people's lives right now, and the fact that it wasn't, that was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that I think is a really big issue, and I think it's a an indication of a larger problem that when it comes to Immokalee, just feels like we're kind of left behind on a lot of issues. And with that being like your tipping point, it makes sense. Like we need representation, we need people to actually care about what's going on. Um, For people that don't know, Immokalee has been one of the hardest hit towns in like Florida in general, because most people living in Immokalee live in like 4 to 5 person households, and they usually live in smaller households in general. So it's really easy to spread around. So it's really just been like a hot spot for a lot of cases going on. Which I think leads me to another point. There's this stigma around Immokalee. I think when you talk to people from other cities or who have heard about Immokalee, they usually have some kind of a negative view. Do you agree with this? Do you think that like people who aren't from Immokalee just see it kind of in a negative light?
Yeah, and that's very frustrating. That's hand in hand with little parts of the media here and there. It seems Immokalee only makes the news whenever it's something bad or something criminal. So I think that helps contribute to it. But whenever we're looking at our neighbors, who is Naples in the county, is one of the richest counties in the country and in the state. It's kind of curious. It makes you curious and scratch your head why 30 miles south you have a community that is one of the poorest in the state.
Yeah, exactly. It's I mean, it's something that I think about a lot because I'm not sure if you knew about this, but before COVID-19, so I don't know if we have any statistics on poverty now after COVID-19, but before COVID-19, the poverty rate was something like 42%, 43%. It just for all of Immokalee. Almost the majority of at least half or almost half of Immokalee was already living under the poverty line. So COVID-19 is just kind of exacerbating that. I think after quarantine gets lifted up and things go back to normal, I feel like things might go even worse at that point. Honestly, so one of your platforms that I know about, which also relates to COVID-19, is that you want to have a hospital built in Immokalee. I've seen you post about it, and I personally think it's a really good idea. It's really important that we have one. The closest one, if I'm correct, is like 30 minutes away from us in Naples, like bordering on Naples. So if there's an accident, we have to go like half an hour to get proper treatment. On your list of priorities for things that you want to do for Immokalee, how high up do you think this is?
That right there is one of the highest. It's either the hospital or that 24/7 urgent care. I think it's very important. That's right up there. I want to say that's my biggest right there, my number one. What gets a little difficult is that's not necessarily something a county commissioner can do. But the reason I'm putting it there number one because I'm going to be working diligently overtime to make sure that's getting done in addition to my duties as county commissioner, because that's how much I care about the community and that's how much I believe there's an importance that should be done.
Yeah. So I think for me, like the bigger thing is when you say you're going to work overtime and try to help get it built. What do you think would be one of your tactics to try to incentivize having one built here?
The biggest thing we could do right now is tax discounts. There's other grants that you can give different members of whoever it is, what organization that may be that would bring one here, such as grants for hiring people or grants for getting started, in addition to incentivizing with a tax cut. It would be a combination of the two and seeing what really worked best without over giving at a point.
Yeah, that's I think a really smart idea. You're right. So from what I've heard, Immokalee pumps out in excess of about $1 million annually for Collier County that we don't see circulated back to us. If you manage to be able to somehow shift the funds or do something with the amount of money that we're putting out that we're just not getting back, what would you say is something that you would try to do with the money, the funds?
With the money, I definitely want to make sure we're reallocating it and make sure it's being proportional. One of the biggest issues we saw was the taxes that the casino was paying in Immokalee wasn't being given to Immokalee. And then that makes you wonder why one of the main revenue streams in Immokalee and the taxes they're paying isn't being contributed to its own town to help beautify it. I would work closely with the CRA for Immokalee as well as the Chamber of Immokalee and try to figure out some of the issues there that they believe would be important. I posted recently this weekend that we got some signs, and with that, I've been talking to certain people in the community, and just saying, hey, can we put up a sign and so forth. And one gentleman had a really good point yesterday, and he was showing me the fact that when it's close to Highlands off of New Market, that a lot of students in the morning that they try to cross to go to school, and that it's you'll see you'll see some cars to where they're going 50 miles up, and they're not slowing down. So that's definitely a concern to where there should be a light there, a crosswalk there, and that's definitely of importance. But we'll see. I believe one of the biggest issues on my platform, I'm not sure we're going to bring this up, but was incentivizing with a survey system. Whether it could be through social media as well as on a website, and just trying to, for the people that can't make those meetings, to still have to know that their voice is taken into consideration and figure out what they believe the main issues are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel for a really long time, for myself at least, I didn't feel like there was any hope in politics or really any possibility for Immokalee to get the kind of help that it deserves. But I think you, having come out here to be a politician, to be a voice for us, and running right now, I think illustrates to everybody who knows about you and who hears about you, just how much this matters to us, just how much Immokalee matters to like the people here. We're so close together. I feel like if you go down the street, you know the person that you're walking next to, the person that you're seeing in the car over, and thank you so much for running. I've never actually seen. I don't actually know what the person you're running against looks like, and I think that's a big issue. The man who's supposed to be representing us, the man who's supposed to be out here, representing us and helping us out. We don't know what he looks like. I don't know what he looks like. I mean, and a lot of people don't even know that we're represented. A lot of people just assume automatically that we don't have any representation. And I think this is a really big issue. And I'm really glad that you're out here talking to as many people, and you're doing a real grassroots movement, which I think is really admirable. So moving back to something that you mentioned earlier about how the culture in Immokalee is very agricultural. We have seen with the sign that was built here, sort of a shift or an attempt to make a shift towards industrialization in Immokalee. And I think this is a little scary for a lot of people because the majority of people here are, working in agriculture, which kind of scares us. And personally, I wouldn't say that industrializing Immokalee is a bad thing. There's nothing bad with that on its own, because it would be bringing business here and it would be creating opportunity. I think an issue, though, is how do we find a way to kind of preserve the culture here and to preserve the kind of small town feel, the kind of homey, how it is here, while also being able to industrialize? How do you plan to keep the culture while also changing Immokalee?
One of the key words with my campaign, and I say this a lot, it gets a little repetitive for some people who follow, is the word smart growth. What smart growth is whenever you're growing, you're not investing into the house, you're investing into the community. So as you grow, which we do know, growth is in some way of some way, shape, or form inevitable. But what we need to do is grow smartly, and that means is whenever we're building communities, take the community into consideration. Have a little more trees for the sidewalks, because we know there's going to be a lot of people walking. Have a bike rack. We know that's one of the preferred ways of transportation there. And if we can just stay true to those values, have homes that are $500,000 here, and we're just really preserving our community. That's what it's gonna incentivize people who, once they leave to go get education, want to come back and contribute.
Yeah. What you just said right there at the end actually ties in really important to something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I think is really important to help Immokalee grow. Education. So I don't know if you know about this, but the rate at which, the percentage of Immokalee that has a high school degree or higher is only about 38%. So, and to put that in perspective, in Naples, it's about 90%, which is really high. But here, it feels, I think the issue isn't actually that people who graduate Immokalee, or I don't think the issue is that people are dropping out. And, we have an issue with people just dropping out of school. I think it's people, when they graduate, they don't see opportunity in Immokalee and they move out. They don't tend to come back, is more what I mean. but how do I explain this? How do you plan to try to get people to stay in Immokalee after they've graduated? Because I think that's one of the key things to try to help Immokalee grow, making sure that people who are educated and get their education come back or they stay here.
Yeah, it's with that smart growth, man. We got to definitely tee up on that multiple times, because one of the big things and the biggest issues here in the town is having year-round jobs. So whenever you get a little bit of example, we had racetrack, which I found out not too long ago. I was speaking with some members from the Chamber of Commerce in town, a member, but they were telling me about a racetrack that was going to be here that got shut down. We look at the Walmart that got shut down. A Tractor Supply, which guaranteed 30 plus jobs, got shut down. So we definitely have these companies who are seeing what's great about the community and trying to contribute to it, but in some way, form, or another, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So we definitely need to make sure that whenever we're choosing who's coming into our community, we're doing it the correct way, and we're able to contribute to having these year-round jobs. That's one of the points. The second point is with housing. We need to make sure we have. I do really like what Arrowhead's been doing with having homes and having some options under 200,000. I believe majority of their options are under 200,000 unless you upgrade. So that's one of my key numbers. I believe we need to get some more housing under 200,000. And another big issue with that is impact fees. So with impact fees, you're looking around 30% impact fees that people pay whenever they purchase a home. If we could do it on a sliding scale to where, let's say, if you purchase a home under 250,000, instead of 30, it's at 20%. And that would really help contribute to getting families jump started.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Something else that returning to the housing, something that I've noticed is, because housing is becoming more pricey, like we know this, housing is just becoming too expensive for millennials or people getting out of college to afford. It's too much. Do you think incentivizing like lower cost apartments or more apartment complexes being built here would be something smart to do as well?
Yeah, one of the biggest issues too is with rent. We're getting to a point where certain people that have a large grasp of the housing here, and as a result, they're able to control the rates here. So we're getting homes here that are way too costly for this community. So whenever you can incentivize a little more apartments and really set that rate that, these people have the option now to where they can purchase a home, to where they can rent at another place until they're ready to purchase a home. Or, if that's not in their best interest to rent, but that they have these options. So we need to make sure we're developing those options for them.
Yeah. So tying back into the poverty rate, like I said, about 42% of Immokalee is living under the poverty line, and that's before COVID-19. What do you think is the biggest hurdle in being able to turn this around?
I actually wasn't aware of the 42%. I heard it before it was over a third. I didn't know it was that high. But then I wrote it down, so I'll definitely look into that. But can you repeat the question? Sorry about that.
Yeah, so the poverty rate in Immokalee is about 42% from the census survey that I was able to find. It's the only information that I've been able to find. What do you think is the biggest hurdle in being able to turn the poverty rate around?
Year-round jobs. By having year-round jobs here and opportunities for that, to where people, I hate it that certain people, when they come here, they think the only option they have is going to the fields. It's definitely great, and we love that, but we want to give them more options, whatever the case may be, whether it can be working in the fields or management positions, because we need to make sure that these farms as well are giving opportunity to the people to move up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think something that we need to think about a lot is the commute, just how long it takes to get to work. The average commute time, from what I saw, was about half an hour, just on average, that people need to drive to get to work. Because a lot of people work in Naples or Fort Myers, or if you work in the fields, you have to get on the bus and then go pretty far onto the fields to be able to go work. Do you think a good idea would be able to provide better public transportation in Immokalee? Or do you think the cat bus is sufficient?
That's where it gets a little difficult, because the cat bus is, I think cat bus is good for out of town. I would like to see other options for in town. one of the big things with that is a bike lane. I think by having a bike lane and having a little more trees, it's incentivizing people to travel through bike. That'll help lower on emissions as well with our
Mm-hmm.
vehicle. We can also have our own let's say a cat bus, but a little more open, a little more friendly, let's say there's one that doesn't have windows and you feel like you're in, like in San Francisco, to where they kind of have the trains that are open. You can just grab
Yeah.
one point A to point B. But it's that same simple mindset to where it's just fast, efficient. You're able to get to the store, come back, and not have to wait so long. And we
So,
go ahead.
finish.
And it definitely just one last thing is tying back to those year-round jobs, because we're at a point now to where we don't have to go out, in a sense of we have our own grocery stores here. We have other options here. However, when you're looking at the stores we do have, unfortunately, some of it's a little bit higher due to being away from so far away from other bigger cities.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to drive, like, say, to a Walmart, the closest one is somewhere in LaBelle. You have to drive 40 minutes to get there. Or if you want to go shopping at a mall, you have to drive to Naples or Fort Myers, and that's an hour by itself.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that bringing commercial jobs here to Immokalee would be one of your priorities as well?
Yes, the right ones though, because there's certain companies that they want to move to new communities and they don't want to pay a lick of taxes. So we definitely can't have that. And look at Amazon last year; they paid zero taxes, and that's boggling a multi-billion-dollar company.
Actually, have you heard that? I think it's Seattle. They managed to pass a bill, or I'm not exactly sure the specifics, but they managed to get something going where Amazon now has to pay them $200 million in taxes. Something on that lines, which I think is incredible. I think it's a sign of we're finally getting companies to start paying their fair share. And like you say, Immokalee's been used for a long time. I mean, I wasn't around, or I was pretty small. So I think in 2008, Bernie Sanders came here, and he basically like revealed to everybody and like showed us like, hey, like this is modern slavery. Like the wages that people are getting paid here, people are getting paid literal pennies on the dollar and being squandered into really small houses. Some people were like actually being physically abused. Like Immokalee has just been given, excuse my language, the shit end of the stick, like a really bad deal a lot of the time. And I think when you say that like we need to get them to pay taxes, you're right. We need to bring companies here and make sure that they're going to start paying taxes if they do come here, because we don't want another case where people bring here saying they're bringing work and really they're just not doing anything for us. Yeah, and I mean, I think I believe you were at the Black Lives Matter protest that I was at, that was here in town, I believe a month ago at this point. Something that really kind of broke my heart and made me really angry was when Alfie Oakes sort of brought out a group of field workers, and we don't know if they were paid. There's some conflicting talk if they were like paid to be there with him. It broke my heart because these are workers that are being paid really badly. The wages for people working in the fields is you're lucky to make over $30,000 a year. You'll be making basically half of that most of the time, right? And he brings out these workers who are getting paid really badly by him, generally, and he's telling us that we need to be happy that we have jobs here. And I think that's kind of insulting, because it's not just that we need jobs here. It's important that we're paid properly. It's cool to say like, hey, people need jobs. It's another thing that's more important to say, hey, we need to have jobs that are actually letting people live off of. And I don't know. I think the whole protest and his whole counter protest indicated a lot to me that made me kind of sad. Did you get that general feeling that as well?
Yeah, it was disheartening seeing that we were just exporting with I don't want to pass judgment, but there was a lot of them there that didn't speak English. So I would say that a lot of them maybe even had a chance that didn't have the education or the knowledge to understand what was going on there. Because my grandmother, example, she made it up to third grade, and she worked in the fields because that's all she knew at that point to do, and was helping the family. So when she got older, that's the only thing she did. So sometimes people they just get to a point to where they know they're good at something and they're just going to stick with it, not knowing that there's other opportunities out there. So whenever he makes those remarks and that man, that narcissist views he has and the way he carries himself, it really is that slave owner mentality. Like, here, I'm giving you a home. I'm letting you pick for me. I'm giving you some food.
Yeah. Yeah, if people are aware of historical context, an argument that slave owners used to justify owning slaves in the first place is that people believed that black people couldn't like handle living by themselves. They're actually getting a good deal because people like they have a house and they have work and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And I think I saw a lot of parallels with that when he was doing the exact same thing right in front of us, and I was just kind of astounded that somebody would do that. In this day and age when we have people who are educated and who do know about that kind of argument, right? And I don't know, it's just something that I think about a lot, and it made me really sad to see happen here in town. But I digress. So returning back to the issue of the hospital in Immokalee, I personally don't have health insurance, and in fact, about 51% of Immokalee residents under 65 also don't have health insurance. And now I know you can't do anything about this. This isn't an issue that you would be able to tackle, but it is an issue that on a national scale that is being tackled by people like AOC or Bernie Sanders. It's called Medicare for All. It's single payer. Basically, the government gives out a flat tax to everybody of about 4%. And increases taxes on people making over about $400,000 a year. Are you in support of like Medicare for All and like these kinds of policies by Bernie Sanders and like AOC?
Yeah, I'd have to see more on Bernie Sanders policies. The one I was definitely a big support of was when Obamacare came out, because with that, one of the reasons we have had some issues with that is because the states, they were supposed to allow at a certain rate, increase the rate so that way families making, 50, 60,000, that they're able to get that healthcare that they need for middle care families. And unfortunately, in certain states, which were primarily Republican states that were controlled for their state houses, they voted that down and they kept the limits the same. So instead of raising from just spitballing here from 30,000 to 50,000 per person, they kept it back at 30. So now it's only if you're in poverty to where you're able to get healthcare. When in actuality, it was created for middle class and lower. So the bulk of Americans would get free healthcare, and that was unfortunate to what happened there. But yes, I'm definitely supportive. It's really tough because I don't.
Would you like me to explain it? Because I'm pretty well versed on what Medicare for All does and the kind of necessary requirements that we have from it. Would you like me to explain a little bit more in detail? Okay, sure. So basically, it's a pretty simple payment. We are going to what ends up happening and people don't know about is basically the average cost for healthcare per person is like 12% of their annual income. Right, so about 12% of your annual income. Usually, if you're making about $60,000, which is the median income in the United States, 12% of that goes to healthcare alone. So that's a good chunk of your money out. Bernie Sanders' plan is to introduce a 4% flat tax on everybody's income. So what this ends up doing is generating a lot of money, but at the same time, people get kind of scared of this because people are saying, "Hey, this is an increase on my taxes by 4%." That sounds a little scary, but the thing that people don't realize is this 4% increase on a flat tax rate, gets rid of the cost that it takes to pay for healthcare in the first place, which is very expensive. It would also be a lot better for businesses as well, because a lot of Americans actually get their healthcare from their business. So this would lower the cost for businesses by a significant amount. And to me personally, I don't really see how people find issue with this. People compare it to Canada or like the UK, saying like, "Hey, we're going to have longer wait times." But studies don't generally show them having much longer wait times in the first place. So that's the basic gist of what Medicare for All is. It's just the 4% flat tax, getting rid of the amount it costs to pay for healthcare in the first place.
Definitely, and it definitely sounds great. I definitely something I want to dive into more, and I'll look into that. But yeah, I definitely like what it stands for. Myself, I didn't have any insurance whenever I got into my wheelchair, so that was a scary situation.
Mhm.
But definitely something needs to be done. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I believe we've been over this before, but the fifth district covers Everglades City and a good amount of natural land and farmland. A big concern for a lot of Americans, and especially youth in Immokalee too, which I don't think people notice a lot, is we're scared a lot about our environment. We're scared about nature. We're afraid that businesses and companies are, just destroying territory and land. Um, what kinds of would you say that one of your priorities for the Everglades and for the or for the portion of the Everglades that we have and for all this territory that you're going to be helping out, um, what kinds of protections are you going to make sure that we have to help protect these environments?
Yes, one of the biggest issues right now, it's actually a referendum. It is on there for everyone to vote. Whenever you see your ballot, is for conservation collar. And what
Mhm.
conservation collar does is they buy certain lands. They strategically buy lands that are going to help water flows, that are going to help preserve the environment. And I believe it's definitely important that we can contribute to that. It comes out to I forgot the numbers off the top of my head. I believe it's if you have a home that's under like 350,000, it comes out to like $70 for the year. But
Hmm.
everyone gets a vote, and then majority, whether you vote yes or no, that's going to be in effect. So I think we need to continue to have great programs like that because that's what's going to help preserve what makes us so special here. And
Hmm.
it really comes down to having these tests and having science and the data, with the data to make sure that we have seen the sea level rise. We're testing that regularly. To where we're seeing with one of the biggest issues in the Everglades that I've seen so far and I've heard is the issue with the water. Right now, they're having low tide and high tide at unreasonable times that are making it difficult
Hmm.
for fishermen. So we need to try to figure out what's contributing to that and try to clean that out.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. So how do I explain this? In Immokalee, we, like I mentioned earlier, we don't have this sense of knowing that we are represented. Like I did really know that we had a county commissioner that helped take care of us. Um, how do you plan to, after, if and when you get elected, how do you plan to make sure that people are aware that you're there and that you are watching out for them? Are you going to be holding public meetings often? Are you going to be making sure that people are aware and informed on this? Because I think it's one thing to have you get in office, but it's another thing to make sure that people constantly are reminded that you are in office for them. Because, like I said, I still don't even know what our county commissioner looks like. I don't know his face. I know your face, and I think that's great. I can put a face to a name that I know, and I know that you are looking out for us. But I feel a lot of Immokalee residents don't have that same feeling. So, how do you plan to keep making sure that people are aware that you're there for them?
It's continuing doing what we're doing. And the reason I like to say when I said earlier about working overtime, I bring it up because right now what we currently have is they only work within the means of their work hours. They're only going to the meetings that are a very selected few are going to, which are at 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. They're not,
Mhm.
they're not going to the grocery store and setting up a table on the weekend. But that's something I want to do. Speaking of that, is once a month set out a table somewhere and just have newsletters. Reach out to
Mhm.
people, make myself readily available to where someone's going into a grocery store they can see and then we could talk. Going
Mhm.
to the little league games.
Mhm.
I have two kids myself, and I coach them with soccer. We're actually going to
Yeah.
take off soccer this year because of COVID right now. The wife and I discussed it. We believe right now is not the best time for
Mhm.
the fall. So my youngest, who just turned 4, was excited. He's not going to be able to play this year for his first year, but next,
Yeah.
as long as everything gets to control, they'll be playing. But it's things like that, making yourself just ready, available, and doing things with the community. It's really not that hard. It really isn't. I know it's easier said
Yeah.
than done, but it really isn't. You just see issues that you believe in it and you
Mhm.
go, and it's really not that difficult. But there's certain people that sometimes when they get, you know, a certain sometimes with some people a dollar affects what they want to do. You know,
Mhm.
some people might think it's not in their best interest when it comes to financially, and it's not about that. It's about protecting the people and being there for the people.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that's
you're
one
right.
of the issues that's going to separate us. It separates me from my competitor.
Yeah. Um, wow, that's a really good message. That's a really great thing to say. Um, something else that, sorry, it slipped my mind. Yeah, wow. How do I explain this? Immokalee has, I think, for a long time, just been kicked down constantly. Like we issue after issue, poverty, just all these things amalgamating and coming together. I think came to a boiled over. Now we have the situation that we're in. Do you think what do you hope to be able to accomplish um, when you're county commissioner? What can you give me, say, your list of priorities of what you want to do by the time you're finished with your office?
Yes, we want to look at it from a budget standpoint to figure out what issues we can tackle, whether we have to tackle a big issue every year for each community, or whatever the case may be with that. And the reason I bring that up is because that's not currently being done. What just happened is it's called what's it called? It's called Paradise Coast Sports Complex. It's
Mhm.
just built to the Naples. I mean, you're looking at, you know, 4 6 huge football fields. It's a huge sports complex that is upwards of $60 million. There's no reason why that should be done when we're having street right now that are still flooding. There's no reason that should be done whenever we're having a middle school that's overcrowded,
Mhm.
and just being smart with that. But as for myself, for the community of Immokalee specifically, whenever as long as we have some healthcare here, some more healthcare, that would be huge on me. That's one of the list of my priorities.
Mhm.
Working with the sorry, I heard my mom in the background.
Yeah.
Working with the school district board and trying to get a middle school here in Immokalee. That
Mhm.
will to help take off with that overpopulation, and just working wholeheartedly to make sure that we're growing the correct way. One of the big things that developers love about Immokalee is that we're above sea level here. So out of
Mhm.
all of Collier County, they're below sea level. So they have concerns, moving forward with the sea level rise. So they want to build on Immokalee more because of that rise. And in
Mhm.
order to do so, we just need to make sure we're doing it correctly. Um, then before we're doing that, I really do want to improve our infrastructure. I'm glad to see right now that the streets are getting fixed with the
Yeah.
help of ERA, from the sidewalks to they're putting new lat posts as well, and that's stuff we need.
Yeah. Yeah. Immokalee has had for a really long time really bad infrastructure. Our roads have been like deteriorating. Um, a, some parts of Immokalee don't even have like actual paved roads. Some of it is just straight up like gravel and dirt, and it's yeah, absolutely. I think one of your priorities is infrastructure, and I think that's admirable because that would help bring a lot of business here. So calling back to what you said about teachers um, and the middle school, something that when I was researching, because I actually emailed and I tried getting to talk to the Collier County public school system, or the the people that help run it. Um, an issue that a lot of teachers face is the drive. Most teachers that teach here in Immokalee don't actually live in Immokalee. They live in, Naples, LaBelle, just pretty far away, about 30-40 minutes away from here. So what ends up happening is they have to come to school to teach here really, really early in the morning. So they, classes start sometimes at like 7 in the morning for the high school. So some teachers get here at like 5 in the morning. They have to wake up at 4, get here. Um, but it seems to me an issue that I might see coming out with building another middle school is trying to get good proper teachers to stay there, because right now it seems like we're having an issue trying to get them to stay in our schools in the first place. Would you see yourself trying to help work with them to find a way to get teachers to stay in Immokalee or to live in Immokalee when they're teaching here?
Yeah, it's figuring out what they have now and figuring out what would work further. Like I know they do get a stipend for fuel.
Mhm.
So teachers right now, they do get a stipend for fuel for traveling for that. Whether it can be some more bonuses, just more incentivizing. We really got to work together to figure out what it is. I couldn't give you a proper answer.
Mhm.
Big issue on my platform is accountability, transparency. So I'll be upfront with you. That's something that I don't have the answer to all wholeheartedly. But we would definitely want to work together to figure out what's the best plan moving forward.
Yeah. what would you say makes you passionate about Immokalee? What makes you so invested into the community that you want to run for office? Is it the amount of time that you've been here? Is it the culture? Is it a mix of all of this?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors with it. It is just having, you know, not only myself, but I wholeheartedly believe that everyone that grows up here, and for the most part, that they just have a big heart and full of compassion for Immokalee.
Hmm.
Growing up, we saw that we were always overlooked. We saw that we didn't get the nice things first. We were the little brother of, the next big city next to us. And
Hmm.
as a result, we stick together to strengthen numbers. And that's what's been helping us with this campaign is the numbers. So we're going to continue that moving forward. But one of the biggest issues with that, sorry, is that we've never had, as you said, the proper representation. I couldn't have
Hmm.
growing up who my elected official was. They weren't really readily available to where I was
Hmm.
like, oh, that's him right there in the community. I see him working, and that's what we're trying to do now. But it really just ranges from my upbringing to my parents that instilled in me at a young age to never forget where you come from.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, were you born in the United States, or are you also an immigrant?
No, sir, I was born in the United States. I'm a third generation.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting. I'm actually from Mexico. I was born over there. Immigrated when I was like 3. Um, yeah, I mentioned this because I think the something that we're noticing now, or something that I notice a lot, is this image of the American dream that people have for a really long time of people building a house. It's usually been like a white family or something. I think the demographic is changing, and I think Immokalee is a really big like example of that. Just families coming from Mexico with nothing on their backs, no money, nothing, and they're building up families here. And I think, are you the son of an immigrant, or or has your family been in the U.S. for a long time?
They've been here for a while. My great grandmother came over here from Mexico,
Hmm.
but we still hold those values true to us, and we're proud Mexican Americans, and
Hmm.
we make sure to never forget that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think you're also a sign of just that American dream. I think that's really,
No, thank
I
you.
don't know. I think this in general, your campaign should be assigned to people who are living in Immokalee, especially younger people like me, that there is hope for Immokalee. There is a change going on. So again, I want to thank you for that. And I think that might be the amount of questions that I have answered. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
well, thank you for that, man. It's really not a me thing; it's a we thing. That
Hmm.
the whole basis on this is running to give a voice back to the community. That's something we haven't had here in this area specifically. So it's just making sure that because at the end of the day, it's not me on there. It's really a representation of everybody in the voices. So it's very, it's very pleasant to hear that, and thank you for those kind words. But today,
Hmm.
whether we win or not, we don't make no mistake about it. We're definitely running to win. But
Hmm.
today it's us. Tomorrow could be someone else, and we just want
Yeah.
to make sure that if we're not being the change we want to see, that we can maybe spark that change for someone else.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you want to plug in, or tell people to help you out with? I think you're in need of donations right now, I believe.
Yes, much donation. So whenever we started this. There's a deadline that was on Friday, and it was Tuesday afternoon to where we put it in that hey, we need $5,280.40 by Friday. Cutoff time was 12 o'clock afternoon.
Oof.
So yeah, and we're able to raise all the funds and get it in there. We raised about a little over 2,000 over, but just purchased some signs, and now we're pretty much almost wiped out with that money. Um, all the money that was raised went to the filing fee, which is a little over 5,000. The signs itself were up there as well. Um,
Hmm.
and we're now at a point to where we need more money specifically for the merchandise to buy more signs, to get some flyers out on the wall. You're seeing businesses we're working on to get postcards. Mailers are so freaking expensive. It's ridiculous. I don't know that. Now you want to get mailers and send them to like get in the mail to where you say, oh, I'm running for so and so. This is what
Yeah.
I blah blah blah. Those right there are upwards to 8,000, and
Hmm.
higher. So it's crazy, these prices, but that's what we need money for, because everything it's all, it's all showing right there on colliervotes.com, where you
Mhm.
see the campaign finance, you see everyone who donated, every penny where the money's going to. So we're transparent 100%, but we're just going and we're just trying to spread the word as much as possible. So if you guys find it in your hearts to can reach us, you can go to standwithdavid.org. You can visit from there we'll have our links for our Facebook, our Instagram, or Twitter, and our handles for all three are Stand with David. You can also, if you'll see the donate button on there, just click on it and it'll take you right to the to put in your contribution. So it's definitely greatly appreciated because we need a penny.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you so much for coming on. This has been, really important to me, and I think it's probably been really important to the people who have been watching, as few as there might have been. I think at most we got something like 11, 12 people watching, which is pretty good actually. But I think it's been really important to have this talk and to get to know you and the policies and to see how much you care about the community. So thank you again, and I think we're done. Thank you.
Thank you, man.